Imagine a world where with a single click, a hospital's entire patient record system vanishes. Where the global food supply chain grinds to a halt. Where the secret blueprints of the world's biggest tech companies are held hostage. This isn't a movie. This was the reality created by a group of digital ghosts who haunted the dark web. They called themselves REvil, short for Ransomware Evil. For 3 years, this shadowy syndicate ran a sophisticated multi-million-dollar criminal enterprise, bringing corporations and even governments to their knees. This is the inside story of their meteoric rise and the unprecedented global manhunt that brought their empire crashing down. Our story begins in mid-2019. In the murky corners of the internet, a notorious ransomware gang known as GoldDust suddenly announced its retirement. But this wasn't an end. It was a rebranding. From the ashes of GoldDust, a new, more dangerous entity emerged, REvil, also known as Sodinokibi. Cybersecurity experts quickly noted the similarities in their code. This was no amateur operation. REvil was built on a ruthlessly efficient business model, ransomware as a service, or RAAS. The core developers in Russia created and maintained the malicious software. Then they recruited affiliates from dark web forums to carry out the attacks. It was a franchise model for cybercrime. The affiliates would breach networks through phishing emails, unpatched software, or stolen remote access credentials. REvil provided the weapon, and the affiliates pulled the trigger, splitting the profits. This lowered the barrier to entry, unleashing a global army of cybercriminals. And the attacks were audacious. In March 2021, they hit the tech giant Acer, demanding a staggering $50 million ransom after publishing stolen financial documents as proof. Weeks later, they breached Quanta Computer, a major supplier for Apple, leaking confidential blueprints for upcoming products to pressure the tech giant. But REvil was about to escalate its game from corporate espionage to critical infrastructure. In May 2021, they paralyzed JBS, the world's largest meat supplier. The attack shut down beef and pork processing plants across the United States, Canada, and Australia, threatening global food supply chains. The company admitted to paying an 11 million ransom in Bitcoin to prevent further disruption. REvil perfected a tactic known as double extortion. It wasn't enough to just encrypt a victim's files. First, they would steal massive amounts of sensitive data. Then, if the victim refused to pay for the decryption key, REvil would threaten to leak the stolen files on their dark web blog, the Happy Blog. It was a strategy of maximum pressure and public shaming. But their most brazen attack would also be their last. In July 2021, REvil executed a massive supply chain attack, exploiting a vulnerability in a software tool made by a company called Kaseya. This single breach allowed them to cripple up to 1,500 downstream businesses, from small-town dentists to large enterprises. They demanded an unprecedented $70 million for a universal decryptor. They had crossed a line. The Kaseya attack was a direct challenge to the US government. Behind the scenes, an unprecedented international coalition was forming. Operation GoldDust, involving 17 countries and agencies like the FBI and Europol, was closing in. First, their dark web infrastructure mysteriously went offline. Then, in November 2021, the US Department of Justice announced the arrest of a Ukrainian national linked to the Kaseya attack and the seizure of $6 million in ransom payments. The final blow came in January 2022. In a rare move, Russia's Federal Security Service, the FSB, announced it had dismantled REvil at the request of the United States. They raided homes, arrested 14 members, and seized millions in cash, crypto, and luxury cars. But the international pressure was only half the story. REvil's downfall was also an inside job. Reports emerged that the core developers had built a backdoor into their own ransomware, allowing them to cheat their affiliates out of their share of the ransoms. In the criminal underworld, trust is everything. REvil had broken the code. Their reputation was shattered. Affiliates abandoned them, and their once feared name became toxic on the dark web. They had become too loud, too arrogant, and in the end, too greedy. REvil is gone, but the age of ransomware they pioneered is far from over. Their tactics of double extortion and targeting critical infrastructure have become the standard playbook for a new generation of cybercriminals. The story of REvil is a stark reminder of the fragility of our interconnected world. It's a tale of greed, hubris, and how a few lines of code from the shadows of the dark web can bring the real world to a standstill. It proves that while digital ghosts can cause immense damage, they can't run forever. Sooner or later, the hunters will always close in. The REvil saga is over, but the threat of ransomware is bigger than ever. What do you think will be the next big cyber threat? Predict below.